Hey, welcome to Change My Mind. I'm your host, Lynda Steele, and today we're talking about the World Cup and whether or not it's worth it to host these mega expensive sporting events anymore. I'm wearing my World Cup sweatshirt if you happen to be watching on YouTube because I've been on a bit of a FIFA roller coaster over the past several weeks. I mean, I'm not a soccer fan. I don't really understand how the game works, and I do live in the zone in the area around BC Place where the games are being held. And there have been road closures, and I just thought, this is going to be a giant pain in the ass. I don't care about soccer. And the other thing, too, was that just before the games, it was like there didn't seem to be a lot of excitement about the games. People weren't talking about it. When you asked people, how do you think you're going to be impacted? Everybody was kind of like, meh, I don't really care. And I kind of thought, man, I hope this isn't going to be just a gigantic boondoggle. But then just right before the games, it was like, boom, overnight, the city seemed to just get it together and clean up the streets and planting flowers. And they put in all these little fun fan installations that were like mini soccer pitches and big, gigantic soccer shoes all around town. And then the fans started to arrive from around the world, and it was getting exciting. And they were waving their flags and wearing their, country's colors. And I found myself, despite not being a soccer fan, going, oh, I'm starting to get a little trill of excitement about the games being here. So I thought, okay, Debbie Downer, this is actually what it's like to live in a city that's hosting a big sporting event. Kind of fun. So I've already changed my mind a little bit, but I'm still wondering, okay, let's get real. It costs a lot of money to host a party and invite the world. And we're still not really sure how much it's going to cost. But the BC government said somewhere in the neighborhood of about $700 million for us, another $400 million of tax dollars in Ontario. So that's a lot of money. And it's probably going to cost more than that, frankly, as we go forward. But the BC government says that they believe there's going to be like about a 5-year tourism echo, going to float our boat and maybe bring in another $1 billion in revenue over 5 years after the games are over. I don't know how they can figure that out, but I hope they're right because, hey, why not? I also think that when it comes to the question of what do we get for hosting the games, aside from a fun party, when it came to the Olympics in 2010, there were a lot of infrastructure amenities left behind that were super valuable to people who live in BC. It was the Canada Line Transit and the Sea to Sky Highway and the Richmond Oval, and then the Olympic Village project, although that one was a little bit of a boondoggle. However, there were things left behind that we all benefited from. When it comes to the World Cup, what did we get out of it? Aside from like a fun party, not much really, because BC Place did do some upgrades. They did accessibility upgrades, which I totally support. But then the other upgrades were to VIP hosting areas, which, I mean, let's get real. I don't care about that, and you probably don't either, and I don't know that I'll ever benefit. So, okay, well, whatever. What about this big tourism boost, welcoming the world? Well, the world knows where Vancouver is, thanks to Expo 86 and the 2010 Olympics. There's not a lot of people around the globe who go like, Vancouver, BC? Never heard of it. We're on pretty much everybody's top 10 list, so I don't know that we need to spend $1 billion to make people know where we are. I think we're pretty good on that front. And there was a recent poll done that showed a very strong majority of Canadians, like 70%, said that they did not think the cost of hosting the World Cup was worth the disruptions. So I don't know. There have been winners and losers. I've talked to a lot of businesses in the Vancouver area who said, we are on fire. We have really raked in some extra dough with the tourists in town. Then I've talked to other businesses who were maybe in a more unfortunate location, and they said business is down for them, like to 25, 40%. So you think, okay, hotels, they got to be cashing in, right? Well, they thought they would be, and they were really looking forward to it. Except for FIFA did something, and I guess it must do this all the time. It went in and it sort of block booked 15,000 hotel rooms in Vancouver. So people who were trying to book hotel rooms for the games were like, couldn't find a room, and the prices were really high. And we all kind of thought, wow, what are people going to do? Where are they going to stay? And then FIFA, right before the games, they shoved these 15,000 rooms back onto the marketplace, and suddenly there was a glut of hotel rooms. And this has been a similar story in Toronto. So the hotel industry, I've been seeing stories going, actually, occupancy is down this summer compared to last year when there was no World Cup. So take it for what it is, right? There's also the other issue of the fact that FIFA as an organization and the International Olympic Committee, for that matter, are not exactly beloved by Canadians. These are gigantic organizations that seem to a lot of people to be greedy, to care more about profits, maybe even slightly corrupt, and that they care about the money that they're making and they don't care as much about the athletes and the teams and the fans and the host cities. So there's that. And then the final thing is, people say, well, is that a good use of $1 billion? Could we have spent the money in a better way? Well, we have a gigantic budget deficit in BC right now and an affordability problem. Ask anyone who's looking to buy a house. We have an opioid situation. There are other things we could have spent $1 billion on instead of like a big several weeks long party. But I keep changing my mind because I am thinking it's fun and I am seeing the world here and it is pretty exciting. But $1 billion party? I don't know about that. Let's bring in our producer and co-creator of Change My Mind, Melanie Nagy. And Mel, I know that you actually, this is a bit close to your heart because you've had an experience covering the World Cup as a journalist. How do you feel about it?
I did, and I'm just going to do something because unlike you, I'm going to,
Oh,
for
look
those
at
that
you.
can't see me right now, I'm putting on a headband with my Canadian flags.
Love it,
Because
love it.
unlike you, I was not able to find any World Cup or FIFA swag, all sold out. So this is the best I can do is little headbands with Canadian flags.
Love it.
So yeah, I have had the privilege, and I say it was a privilege because it really was. It was part of, I found so much of what I did as a journalist a privilege to be able to travel the world to these amazing events. And I did go to the World Cup, the Women's World Cup in Melbourne. I covered some games. I was lucky. I got to see, that was Christine Sinclair's final World Cup. And
no, that's awesome.
it was great. I mean, I felt like I was there in moments of history. It was also a tough time for that women's team, if anybody remembers the controversy that swirled around them at that time. But being there, being able to cover it, feeling the energy, like what you described in the fan zones and being out in the street, people were united. It was a sense of community. People from around the world were connecting. And I have to be honest, I got caught up in it. It was contagious. And I feel that. I mean, I'm more removed from you because I'm currently on Vancouver Island, so I haven't been able to get into the fan zones. But I think I'm a bit of a bandwagon person when it comes to these big events. I get caught up in other people's excitement. However, FIFA for me, that's the big challenge. And all those challenges when it comes to FIFA, the World Cup, affordability, spending. Like you, I'm kind of torn, but I have to say, I've been swept up in the excitement, particularly when it comes to Team Canada, as you can see by me just donning some Dilly Bopper headbands for our episode today. So, Lynda, I'm hearing from you that you're torn. You're going back and forth. Any other thoughts? Like, I just sometimes wonder, couldn't we be a festive city in Vancouver even without a mega event?
Well, I do kind of feel like it was fun to experience. I do think we should take a pass on the next one and maybe think about it in the future. If our economy is better, that'd be a more appropriate time to host a big game and spend a bunch of money. But I'm not really impacted. I'm not someone who, can't buy a house or is struggling for childcare or something like that, where they wish that government would spend money on things that actually improved your life versus just making you happy because the world is partying in your backyard. So I think it depends on who you are, frankly.
That's true. I mean, there's no doubt it is expensive, and the benefits compared to the costs, we're going to probably be talking about that long after even when our episode launches. So for your discussion today, I think we are well positioned with the guest. Don Taylor is going to join us. And if you are somebody who follows sports, particularly in the province of BC, you know Don Taylor's name. I mean, he is a veteran sports broadcaster. He's been inducted into BC's Sports Hall of Fame for media. He is somebody that's really known for bringing in his expansive knowledge of sports to obscure trivia. He sometimes weaves in impressions. He has this unique style that people really gravitate to. So he's well liked, well known in our province and beyond. He's had columns in newspapers, his own radio shows, he's had his own TV shows. He's currently on Czech TV, co-hosting a program there. So he is knowledgeable. He knows his stuff, and I'm really curious to hear what his take on big mega events like the World Cup, what his take is, and if he thinks it's worth it, and to see where your discussion goes.
I'm excited too, and maybe both of us will change our mind afterwards. So I'll check back in with you for a debrief a little bit later.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lynda. Have a great conversation.
Okay, Don Taylor, a sportscaster extraordinaire. Thank you so much for joining us. This is super fun. And I see you have this amazing setup where your tripod is your arm from a distance. So I hope it doesn't fall off.
Yeah, okay, people got to have to know that there could be a bit of a technical difficulty. The difficulty being I don't do enough curls.
Right?
So,
You have like a
yeah,
giant bicep by the end of this. I'm wearing my
that's
World
right.
Cup sweatshirt for you. I
Oh,
dressed up for
goodness.
you, Don.
Oh, wonderful. Isn't this fun? I mean, this World Cup has just been so wonderful.
Okay, but let's wind this back. So before we get into
Yeah,
the wow, sunshine and lollipops and everything, in the beginning,
yeah.
I was thinking I was talking to people and they were like, I don't care. Like nothing's happening. There's no buzz. There's no
Mhm.
excitement. And I know that you kind of were feeling that a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah.
So talk about just before the games, it kind of felt like no one cared that much.
I work downtown. Our studios are downtown, and both Rick and I do our steps after work, working, walking in the most beautiful city in the world, and you saw all this construction going on, um, all these posters and colors around town, bars along Granville Street extending out to the street with their wooden barriers and just all this work going on. I couldn't help but think to myself, is this gonna work? Because I don't really feel it at this point. And look, I think as Canadians, we tend to have this inferiority complex. Like we can't possibly put on a good event, like a great event, like the Americans would, or the English would, or the Germans, or whoever. And I think one thing that has really been driven home to me during this experience, which has turned out to be just wonderful, the one thing that's really been driven home to me, which was front and center for everybody, is the word world. It is the World Cup. It's not just about us. It's about so many other nations, 47 other nations, and the other countries that aren't involved. So many people care about this. So many people travel. Maybe more so than the Winter Games in 2010. And I just think maybe we just underestimated that. As obvious as it is, it's the world's most popular game. It does involve the entire globe, almost the entire globe, and I underestimated that. I just didn't, and I remember 2010 and how fabulous it was. Nothing could possibly equal that, could it? I think this is pretty close. It's pretty darn good.
Well, and I'm like you too, because in the beginning, I'm kind of like, meh, I'm not really a soccer fan, but it's only because I don't really know the rules. I mean, I watched one game where I thought we were wearing white jerseys and we were wearing black. And I'm thinking, oh, wait, who's scoring? What's going on? So I'm
Yeah,
not the right person to be super excited about the World Cup. But when
yeah,
I saw the fans and waded in on, Granville Street, and you're in thousands of people and they're crowded around TV screens and cheering. And I'm like, woo, like a total idiot and wearing the colors and stuff and
yeah,
having my whole Canadian experience. It was exciting. But I
yeah,
did think, it is in some ways elitist in that the tickets are super
oh,
expensive and the
yeah,
experience of really going to the game and being in, BC Place isn't for everyone, that you
yeah.
have to have a few bucks. So it kind of feels like it's not as accessible. So if you say, hey, it cost $1 billion to put on these World Cup games, is it worth it to the guy who can't afford a ticket to actually watch a match?
Well, I think it is, Linda, and I will say this: the one thing that's surprised me. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know the demographics or the breakdown or anything like that when it comes to the ticket buyers, but I know personally a lot of people who aren't elite, who are just massive soccer fans, and they have said, "Screw it, I'm spending money on this thing," and they know more about the sport and the experience than I do or did. and they've spent money. Obviously the elite are there, and the 1% are there. I think there are a lot of people who saved up for this thing because it is so special, and it's or rarity we get to cheer like this for our country in a sport other than hockey. That I think it's not just the like they say, the 1% or the elite. I think there's more to the audience than that. There's a lot of, if you want to call it, like normal people, for lack of a better word, that I think go to these games. And like I say, I know some of them. Some of them, they're like, you know what? I'm not missing this thing. I'm going to spend $1,200 in the secondary market and have the experience of my life. And I think too, the thing that's happened is that the games in Vancouver, they've been so good. One, I mean, not that the Qatar game was really entertaining, but it was an outstanding result for Canada. First ever win. That's historic. You got to see that. I think it's everybody I've talked to that did buck up, that isn't necessarily a part of the elite. They're totally worth it to them. Totally worth it. And another thing, Lynda, I think the FIFA people that we've had on our show, they justify everything, by saying, what do you pay? And I don't know if they have a total read on the North American market, or certainly the Canadian market. But what do you pay for a Stanley Cup playoff ticket? What do you pay for an NBA Finals ticket? What do you pay for the Super Bowl? A lot of money. What do you pay for a Taylor Swift concert, a Paul McCartney concert? Pay a lot of money, and that's the way they justify it. And I kind of hate to say it, I think they might have been right in saying that we're somehow, despite all our complaining and how life is so difficult these days, we kind of accept these outrageous prices for these massive events, whether it's in the music world, anything in the entertainment world, sports world. We've come to accept that. And I think they kind of knew what they were doing. As much as I hate to say that.
Oh, Don. Okay, well, let me break that down a little bit because, you're talking about Taylor Swift. That's kind of a one or a two-night affair. It's not costing the province of BC almost $1 billion to put on this party to host the World. And so let's first talk about FIFA as an organization, because, again, I'm not a big soccer follower, but I am savvy enough to see that there's a lot of people who think, I don't really like FIFA as an organization. They're kind of greedy, greedy, greedy,
Yeah.
and maybe a teeny tiny bit corrupt is what some people say. And you see, the FIFA president handing Donald Trump this, gold piece, trophy that was just meant to blow smoke up his ass. And so you kind of go, nah, for them, it's all about the money. It doesn't really seem to be about the fans and the game and the celebration of soccer. It seems to be about how much can we make? Is there any fairness to that?
No,
No?
there isn't. That's the short and quick answer.
Okay.
But the explanation for what we're seeing is, despite rumors of corruption or proof of corruption, the fact that Infantino, the head of the FIFA, wanted basically an armed guard wherever he went. He wanted a motorcade, all those stories that kind of make you sick. The one thing that I've learned through the years is that all of this can go on. Things like that, things that are borderline evil, if you want to use that word. Sports always wins. Soccer is a wonderful sport to watch. So you can have all this negativity surrounding, some field of entertainment. In the end, the talent and the entertainment value ends up winning. Sports is wonderful to watch, wonderful to play. And you can, again, have all these bad things around it. And ultimately, it comes down to what happens on the pitch.
Glass is half full. I love that. But, if we're going to drill down a little bit, let's just talk about amenities. So 2010 Olympics, I'm so sad I didn't live here then. And yet everybody said the Olympics in Vancouver were so spectacular. People
Yeah.
had such a love for this event. But when the tourists packed up their jerseys and left town,
Yeah.
we had major stuff left behind, like Canada Line and Sea to Sky
Yeah.
Highway and whatever. With the World Cup spending arguably a similar amount, we have very little that we're getting out of it other than some upgrades to BC Place.
Yes, the infrastructure was improved in 2010. There's no question about it. I would think that the value would be what these few weeks are doing for the economy, for bars and hotels, and also looking ahead. I don't know how much you've checked out social media, Twitter. That's the one social media platform I use the most. But Vancouver's getting a lot of love. And so I guess the thinking is, what's that going to mean for the rest of the summer? What's that going to mean for years down the road? Will the people that visited come back? Will the people who tweeted out photos of our beautiful city influence other people to come here and help out tourist wise, economy wise? I'm sure that obviously that's was part of it in 2010 too. And on top of that, and anybody who is hoping that Vancouver does well, the weather has been unbelievable. Like, I mean, there's no city that can come close. I'm sorry. And people are seeing this. And there's one tweet, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but an American fellow, I believe he's from Washington, D.C., came up to watch. And his caption, picture of English Bay around 8 o'clock at night. You know what it looks like. The sun going down. There's nothing like it. And his caption was, "Is this place for real?" And so again, I'm being very, very positive about this, and I was ready to be negative about it. But when you see things like that, you realize that there could be some value down. There should be some, I would think, value down the road when it comes to hotels and bars and restaurants, not just this summer, but for years to come. Let's just hope they don't. Let's just hope they don't come in January. Right?
Right? They're like, this
No,
place, it rains all the time, is a horrible place. I'm loving your optimism, and I have seen the same reviews of Vancouver, and I've been proud too. And this is where I live. Suddenly, like have some credit in how amazing Vancouver is. But at the same time, I also think, okay, well, it's not like we're some little burb in, backwater Saskatchewan or Alberta or BC for that matter. We're Vancouver, and we're already on the top 10 list of the most beautiful, most amazing, most desirable places to live. So does this just the icing on the top of the cake? Because it's not like we're introducing ourselves to the world. We kind of did that starting back at Expo 86.
I'll go negative here for a second. Whenever I travel, I'm blown away by how little people know about Canada and how even less they know about Western Canada.
Mm.
Like, they know about Toronto, they've heard of Montreal, it's kinda like Europe, Quebec City maybe, but Vancouver, Western Canada, nah, I don't, I'm not so sure about that. Sure, they've heard of it, but do they really know about it? I don't I don't my personal experience is that I'm not so sure they do. We think they do, but whenever you talk to people, "You're from Canada," they don't know. We're dwarfed by those guys down south. I mean, I don't people have an idea of just what our country is like. Tip to tail, it's just amazing. We know that. I'm not so sure everybody does, Linda.
That's an interesting point. And really, I know this from having grown up in Alberta and traveling internationally. People say, where are you from? And you'd say, Edmonton, and they'd be look quizzically like, I have never heard of that, with the exception of being in a rural area of Ukraine, interviewing two 6'5" sausage making brothers in a village. And they were like cartoon characters. And they said, where are you from? They're asking the translator. I said, Edmonton. They go, Edmonton Oilers. And they knew all about it. So to your point, maybe you're right. I mean, I'm just thinking, wow, look at, we live in this amazing city. And maybe it's true that the rest of the world still hasn't caught on. However, if we,
No
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
fun of Ukrainians. My mother was Ukrainian. I'm half. So, like, and of course, the Ukrainians would have heard of Edmonton. Three-quarters of the population in Edmonton is Ukrainian.
Okay, well, you've just ruined my little anecdote there, but I take your point, so good for you. My thing, though, is as much as I was like Debbie Downer at first, like, I don't care about soccer, who cares? This is road closures, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, this is so exciting and I'm really having fun and I'm enjoying this and this is my city and all that. Um, I'm still thinking, okay, is the party really worth the glow and the fun of walking down Granville Street? Is that really worth $1 billion to the average person in BC?
I guess we'll find out. Whatever whatever the numbers say, that they'll be glossed over somehow, or there'll be some red herring where we're not paying attention to it anymore. But I don't know. Can we have some fun though? Like, is that okay? I mean, I know this spend money on, I get that, but I don't know. Like, are we better for Expo '86? Is our city better for Expo '86? Is it better for the 2010 Olympics? I think the answer is probably yes. I think our city is better for those events in terms of just memory. Even just when you want to start with memories and what it must have done for the economy. And if you owned a house in '86, how much your house went up? But there's got to be something good to this. I would have to think. And in the meantime, it's I don't know. It's just an eye opener. The other thing too is I know I'm way too positive in this interview, and we're not always positive about stuff. But yeah, I think part of it is I'm just blown away by how positive it has been, how good it has been. I love soccer. I'm not my number one sport though. I'm just blown away by just how entertaining it's been. I kind of feel that I get it today more than ever. I get the sport more than ever. But I don't know. I just I'm all positive here, Lynn. I'm disappointing you. I think you want
No,
me
no,
to
no, no, no.
yeah.
No, no, Don, let me stop you there. The thing is, I don't want you to be Debbie Downer. I don't want you, I'm not trying to get some specific answer. In
Hmm.
fact, you're making me change my mind through
There
this
you go. See, that's
conversation.
what I'm here for.
Yeah, because I'm trying to see both sides of it. As a non-soccer fan, but as someone who's proud of Canada and proud of my city, I just didn't understand how the game worked. People are trying to teach me, like, okay, now I kind of understand.
Ball goes in the net. It's a goal. Okay.
I understood that one little bit.
Okay.
I had to
Yeah.
figure out what color our jerseys were, but I want to be excited about it, and yet I do also see that at this particular point in time,
Mhm,
BC has running this gigantic deficit, and we've had
mhm.
long-standing problems with affordability, and so I can appreciate when someone says, "Why the hell do we need $1 billion party?" I can go, "Yeah, I kind of get that because I'm not the person who doesn't have a house. I'm not the person who can't afford childcare."
Yeah.
So I can see how people are going, well, let's weigh the balance of this. Part of it makes me wonder going forward, just because of the enormous cost. Cities used to vie for we needed to win, even with the Vancouver Olympics.
Uh,
Vancouver was vying with other world cities to host the
yeah.
Olympics in
Yeah.
2010.
Yeah.
And when they won, it was just like this huge, exciting thing. And I just wonder going forward when everybody around the world is a little bit more economically tight,
Yeah.
if there's going to be a situation where we go, hey, maybe it's time to say there's going to be 3 permanent host cities and that's it. We'll put in the infrastructure and then we'll do it there. Is that going to happen ever?
I, oh, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that happened. I wouldn't be surprised, maybe not in my lifetime, that Vancouver gets another Winter Olympics. But let me use an example here. Sochi in Russia, they built all these new facilities, and apparently they're not being used like they thought they were going to be used. Okay, now I could be wrong there, but I just think, and look, you're already seeing it. Los Angeles is hosting the Olympics again. Well, that's the third or fourth time that Los Angeles has hosted an Olympics. Vancouver has the infrastructure now. I'm talking about sports where they can host another Olympics. So and look at Beijing hosted, within the space of what, 8 years, winter and summer games.
Mm.
I don't think it's an advantage to the cities that have hosted Olympics before, but just because, like everything, it all comes down to money. I think you're bang on, Linda. I think you're going to see that more and more, where cities who have come up with the facilities to host an Olympics, winter or summer. Will end up hosting again just because it makes more sense for them to do that because they don't have to go out of their way to spend extra money to build a curling rink, to build a luge run or a bobsled run or ski jumping facilities. They're already there. Everything comes down to money, so I don't think there's any doubt that's going to happen. Like I say, it's already happened.
So if, because there have been talks about, hey, maybe Vancouver should host another Olympics.
Yeah.
And people are like, yay, no, I don't know. Would you think we should do that?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily want Vancouver to spend that kind of money, although, like I say, some of the facilities are here right after the World Cup. But of course I would. I'm a sports guy. I'd love to do that. I just had a wonderful experience in 2010. I'm not politically aware enough. I should be as a parent and somebody who's 900 years old. All the other all the other things we should spend money on. But I just think there is value in having events like that. Not every single year, but to bring people together, to bring people to your city, to spark tourism in the city. Maybe you get some infrastructure out of the big events. I'm not so sure, but I'm a sports guy. Of course, I'm going to go for that. But here's the thing about 2010. Good luck duplicating that. Like, I mean, the way it ended and all that, just there was no riot, so that was good. That would be a tough ask, and that would be really, really special. I will say this: I'd like to see it again. I'm not so sure I'm going to see it in my lifetime, and I think that's a good thing because not, and I'm not trying to be negative towards myself or anything, because of what I just said. Good luck trying to duplicate that event. That was so spectacular. Canada won its first Olympic gold medal on its own soil at that event. Canada had won more gold medals than anybody else, 14 of them in 2010. It ended with Sidney Crosby's golden goal. I mean, it's just not going to happen again. So I think the further you get away from those comparisons, probably the better.
One last question. Just talk about the kids and how you think young people and children seeing these events, seeing, the World Cup in Vancouver through their eyes and their sports heroes. A lot of young kids are into soccer. It's a very accessible sport. Just talk about the value in the memories that are being created and the inspiration that they're giving to young children in Canada.
One of the positives with sports is that yeah, okay, there's a lot of things people don't like, there's violence, there's, competition, there's crazy parents. And, whether you're watching in the stadium, at home in your man cave, with your family, Jack Pool Plaza, down at the Peony Amphitheater, people are together and often cases with their families, with their moms and dads, with their brothers and sisters and their cousins, nephews and nieces. And I think that you can't put a price tag on that. It's just very, very important for everybody. And I think it bonds people together. That's been the case with the World Cup. I didn't see it coming. I don't think you saw it coming, but it was still a wonderful experience for a lot of people. And I just think bringing people together like that is just so important. And the young kids will remember moments like this for forever and ever. Remember when Canada beat Qatar 6-0. Remember when Canada came, so close to beating the Swiss. I remember things when I was a kid. I remember the 72 Canada Russia series like it was yesterday. What just absolutely incredible, and sharing it with my father. And it was wonderful. So there's just so much value in it. And you have a hard time convincing me it's not a positive thing.
Don Taylor, you have changed my mind. I mean, you really have.
Really?
I actually flipped around, and I credit you for that. And this is my World Cup bonding experience with Don Taylor's.
Anytime, Linda. I appreciate you having me on.
Okay, so, well, shut my mouth. I have actually really changed my mind about the World Cup. So let's bring back in co-creator and producer Melanie Nagy, because Mel, I'm going to be really honest with you. This is probably, aside from our discussion about social media, this is the one discussion that made me go, I came in it thinking this and came out it thinking, oh, a 180.
I know that was a definitive change your mind.
Yeah.
You've kind of been close. Tell me, if you can, what really tipped it for you? What made you change your mind?
Well, I think part of it was that I knew in the early going that Don felt the way I did, was that, man, the city doesn't seem excited and this is going to maybe be a dud. And then I could tell that we both had our own journeys of discovery, where we were wading out into the fan zone and seeing the excitement and watching it on TV and seeing how amazing Vancouver looked and feeling proud. And then I thought, okay, really, Vancouver is often accused of being a no-fun city. And to shut it down and say, we're never going to do anything because we have social problems that we need to address first. The reality is we're probably always going to have social problems. And yeah, I still think maybe Vancouver can take a pass on the next one and let another city do it, and we'll be as equally proud of them as Canadians. But I understood what Don was saying about the idea of sports being a great connector that can make us feel excited and connected globally, particularly at a time when things are a little bleak and there's wars and there's financial insecurity and people are angry. And then, oh, when we can all watch a sporting event and feel excited and pull for the athleticism and, the spirit of different nations, I thought, okay, that is worth something. And I think I just didn't value it the way I should have.
Well said. I mean, that connection, you can feel it whether you're far away from the fan zone or not at a game, just watching it from home on your TV. You can feel that connection. And that is true. Sports has always been a way to connect. I think also all the questions that you had going into this, your concerns, those are all still valid. And those are all
Sure.
questions that will be researched, dug into by journalists, by analysts. People are going to look at this and evaluate these games. So I don't think any of those concerns will be lost. But like you, just kind of get swept up in the connection, particularly like you said, it's not easy times right now. And sometimes we need something positive to hold on to.
And it's true that sports, regardless if you're a soccer fan or not, or if it's hockey or if it's football or basketball, that it is a rallying point and that we can all learn more about it and we can support our teams and be excited about the drama and the thrill and the athleticism. And I think I'm just going to fold my tent a little bit on the idea of it being a waste, $1 billion waste of money. I don't think it's a waste of money. It is a lot of money. And I do think going forward, maybe there will be a format change where they can find a way for cities to host that makes it less expensive in the future. But for the meantime, I'm going to just bask in the glow, the World Cup glow.
Well, you did. You changed your mind. So it was a great conversation. And thank you so much for being open and curious about the topic.
Thank you so much, Mel.
Talk to you later.
So there you go. I mean, that was a very definitive, I changed my mind. I really went into this thinking, oh, it's kind of fun. And even though I'm not a soccer fan and, well, it's a lot of money, but they say we're going to make it back. So we'll see. I do think I just needed to take a breath. I get it. I completely understand that there are people who don't think this was a good use of money. But if you just sort of boil it right down to the fact that sports is a great connecting thing, it can sort of bring the world a little bit closer together in an era where the world feels troubled and angry and polarized. And maybe this is what we need at this time. And do I hope it's not going to end up being, a financial boondoggle where it costs us an extra $500 million? Yeah, I sure hope that doesn't happen. And going forward, maybe we can find other strategies where a city can host and it doesn't cost as much. But I changed my mind. And that's the point of talking to someone else who is both educated and also open-minded. And so that's what this podcast is all about, is curious, open-minded conversation where you can potentially change your mind. And that's what I did. And I don't know where you're at, but I hope that in the future that you can listen to these kinds of conversations and weigh it and take the balance of it and go, you know what? Kind of moved my mental yardsticks. That's what we're trying to achieve. So thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again soon.